I tried and failed to survive in the Premier League with a budget of just 10 million from drafted players. This time, however, we're cranking that right up to 700 million. And the goal won't just be to survive this time it's to win it all. But it won't be as easy as that, because these 3 wheels of death will decide how much we spend on each player, what position, and what role they will play. Like the survival attempt, we'll be using draft mode to draft our squad, but this time there's some big hitters in there. So up here we could make an absolute god squad, but we have to make it a bit more interesting with the wheel. Right, so wheel 1 will decide the area of the pitch the player's going to come from. And first up, it's gave me defence. Next up, we are dictated what role this player will then play. Every role on the game is in this wheel. So the first defender doesn't make any sense. Wait a minute, I haven't thought this through. It's landed on Shadow Striker, but I have to buy defender. Right, hang on. It landed on defender, but it's landed on Shadow Striker. I can't have a defender being a Shadow Striker. I've got one too many wheels. Yeah, we're getting rid of this wheel. FM25 getting cancelled, fogged my mind. Right, back to this wheel. So whatever this lands on, the player we buy will have to play this role. That makes more sense. And it will be a central midfielder. Now we get to see how much we're going to spend on this central midfielder, and you can see we've got at least 50 million, 30 to 40 million, 10 to 20 million, the most expensive player you can possibly get, or 20 to 30 million. And the first one is a bit of a budget buy with our budget of 10 to 20 million. So our first central midfielder can't be any of these players, so let's just slap a filter in there. So I've set my filter at 20 million, and these are the players we can get. Who stands out here for 20 mil? I mean, I'd love a player like Nuno Santos, but he's a winger, so I need another filter in there. There we go. Now we've got a better idea of what we're cooking with. I really like Laser Samadzik. Look at his long shots and his passing. In fact, I think I've just convinced myself. So he is our first pick. And remember, he must play the role of a central midfielder. Okay, after that first mishap with the wheel, I think we're there now. So second up will be, until we get a full squad, this is the way we're going to hit this. Next up will be, that's okay, a wing back. And for the wing back, we will have to spend at least 50 million. So now I don't even have to mess with this max value. I can just leave it as it is. The only thing I'm going to change is I'm going to filter out the positions. So all I'm going to have is the wing backs on, and we've got a clear hit on whichever one we want. At this point, I realised no wing backs cost 50 million, so we had to pick someone a bit lower. Okay, top value is Kyle Walker. I'm not going to go for him. Lucas Hernandez, Reece James. We could even have Trent, Hakimi. Wow. How about the crossing machine that is DiMarco? I'm actually really tempted. Sheer pace in Davis. I think I've just convinced myself. Davis in. Okay, cool. Let's mix it up this time and find out how much we've got to spend on our next player role. It's most expensive. I mean, what do we want from this? A striker so we can get Messi or Big Erling for going for maximum domination? Winger, and winger it will be. So now I have to select the most expensive winger I can possibly select. Now Messi's the most expensive player in the game, and he can play out wide, but I don't think he's a winger, so I'm going to disregard him, and I'm going to disregard Mbappe. Which then leads me to Mo Salah, who can be classed as an absolute winger, albeit one that will cut inside, which will add to his player instructions. Absolutely delighted to add Mo Salah to the club. Next up, we have to choose another attacking player, and this time it was an inside forward. It was most expensive yet again, and this time I was going to take £93 million worth of Kylian Mbappe. Our fifth pick would lead us to get a bargain basement player for 10 to 20 million. This time it was a deep line playmaker. Either of these two positions will cover it in the filters. There were some good players to choose from, but I'm looking for someone with great passing and vision, so I ended up taking Billy Gilmore.
What?
My sixth pick would be a striker, an interesting one as well. How about a false 9? And the price for that false 9 will be, it's another bargain basement. Now, there was rakes of good strikers in this ballpark. Players like Tammy Abraham and Skamaka, but they weren't exactly false 9s. I want my false 9 to be able to play attacking midfield or wing, so he's got a good all-round game. And that's why I landed on Ademola Lookman. So as it stands, I've got a squad size of 6, and I've still got 429 million left. I've got quite a few bargain players in there, alongside some absolute elite ones. So next up, looks like we're going to flesh out the midfield with a box-to-box midfielder. Squad's definitely taking shape now, and for this box-to-box midfielder, it's going to be a decent amount of money, 30 to 40 million. Should be some decent quality here. Danny Olmo's there, but I wouldn't class him as a box-to-box midfielder. Same as Florian Wirtz. I mean, amazing, but if we're being true here, You wouldn't class him as a box-to-box, would you? Kovacic is an option. I think he's definitely got a box-to-box about him. But my choice is going to be Chelsea's Caicedo. I think he'll be perfect. I mean, looking at the squad now, you can see we've got a bit of a midfield formed. Caicedo as the box-to-box. Samadzik as a central midfielder. Billy Gilmour as a holding deep-line playmaker. We're going to have a winger in Salah, inside forward Mbappe, striker in Lookman. But it doesn't work like that. It all depends what the wheel hits us with next. And the wheel gave us another 30-40 million to spend on our next player role. And it was time for our second wing back. Annoyingly, we could have got Freddie Di Marco in, but we've already got Alphonso Davies for the left-hand side. So I'm going to check João Cancelo to play as my right wing back. We've got a great squad, right? But we really need to start getting some centre-backs because I have none at the minute. And this ain't going to help, is it? But I am getting worried now, the fact I'm not getting enough defenders. I chose Martinelli for that one. Squad's looking great, but we haven't got enough defenders. And we've only got 320 million left. It's another 20 to 30 million. I will say this. You might notice that there are no goalkeepers on here because whatever we've got left after I've got 10 players, I'm going to get a goalkeeper in. My issue is I might be left with like 10 million for a centre-back and it's just carrying on here, look. With 30 million to spend on a pressing forward, we could have actually got Ronaldo, but you wouldn't really class him as a pressing forward, would you? Instead, I took Luis Openda, who can play that role pretty comfortably. He's got the aggression. Got to be another striker. Choices here are ridiculous. We've got Williams, Icardi, Gyökeres, Lukaku, Thuram, Nunes, Isak. Let's take Gyökeres. I now had 11 players, but no centre-backs and no goalkeeper. And this would continue as it gave me another striker. And then another wing-back. And this is where I got a little bit clever, just in case we didn't get any centre-backs. I chose Nuno Mendes, who, although he's only 5'9", he can jump across if need be. But I had now spent an awful lot of money and the next one was going to be the most expensive player. That might sound good, but if he lands on another striker, I don't need him. And now it's another wide midfield. So this is where it starts to bite me a bit, because I've got a cracking squad. I've got 174 million left. I now need to get a wide midfielder, and it's got to be the most expensive wide midfielder I can get. So I've got these filters, I'll take all these off, but the only two positions he's going to have to play is there. A natural on the left or right hand side. Got to be the most expensive player. Jack Grealish, who you could see playing as a wide midfielder. All right, Jack Grealish for 50 million. So this is the situation. We've got to get a defensive midfielder for at least 50 million. We've only got 64 million left, and I've got a squad size of 16 already. However, as you can see, I've got no natural centre-backs in there. So this is a bit of a problem. I've got to spend at least 50 million, and it's going to have to be either Bruno, Frankie de Jong, or randomly Thiago, who's valued at 53 million. But because of my defensive crisis, I'm going to choose Frankie de Jong, who's not obviously a natural centre-back, but he can kind of do that job. Now he's in, that's left me with 7.25 million, and remember, I've still got to stick a random goalkeeper in there. However, because of the rules of my own self-inflicted challenge, you'll notice that the wheel there has no option for under 10 million. Therefore, I'm going to have to spend the remaining 7 million on a goalkeeper, and these boys are going to have to muddle together to try and play centre-back themselves. So I'm taking a punt on James Trafford. I mean, at least he's massive. And that, ladies and gents, is our God squad. It's not as easy as it first sounded, was it? All that's left to do now is to put that team into the main Football Manager game and see if we can win it all. For this one, we're going to take charge of Southampton. So, Southampton fans, I hope you're not attached to these players because they are all going to get released. That's them all gone. Now to bring in the big guns. And just like that, Southampton now have the best squad they'll probably ever have. Problem is, there's no centre-backs naturally. So now I've got to create a tactic that will get the best out of us to win everything. Normally I'd be confident, but that centre-back conundrum is bothering me a little bit. For example, if I just wanted to play a normal 4-2-4, the quick pick with my best squad would look something like that. And as you can see, it throws in Di Lorenzo and Mendes into the centre-back positions. It also leaves out Gyökeres and Lukaku. But the plan is to play players where I said they were going to play, so Salah needs to be a winger. Therefore, he's going to play there. So I could play Mbappe up front and he would rip it up, no doubt, but he was picked as an inside forward, so that's what I'm going to do. The only license I'm going to give myself is to find a couple of centre-backs, whether it be De Jong, Di Lorenzo, Mendes, whoever I do play in there, that's going to position that they're not going to be natural at. Everyone else will play the position that they were picked off that wheel. Now, interestingly, Southampton have moved up the odds, but not to where you may expect. They are expected to finish 5th with our new look squad, And the media dream 11? We've only got Mbappe and Grealish in it. We've got a couple of options here. We can either go for a really aggressive 4-2-4, looking a bit like that, 4-3-3, or something a little bit unorthodox like this. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a third of the season with each. But I think we'll play this tactic 4-2-4 up until November, and then we'll switch it. As we get to November, unsurprisingly, we were the top goal scorers in the league with 34, but we had lost some stupid matches. Every one of them 1-0. On the flip side to that, when we got going big time, including this game against West Ham. And we even managed to beat Man City as well, so there's definitely hope that we can do this. But to be honest, being down in 5th at this stage is not good enough. We're only 5 points off the top. Lukaku's been outrageous. 13 goals he's scored already, and I know, Romelu, I know there is a lack of sufficient depth at centre-back. Like, everyone's been really good. Salah's out injured, so when he's injured, Martinelli comes in as a Rom Dotter. There he is, so that's one option. The other option is, because we're not doing very well, it's time to change up the tactic a bit. So to do that, I went into the archives for a Pep-inspired tactic, and I've completely messed around with it to get our players shoehorned into it in the roles they should be. Let's see how this goes for the next 3 months. It's January now, and we're in danger of getting caught adrift a bit, because we're 6 points off leaders Tottenham. The new tactic started with a defeat to Arsenal. But then in our next match against Manchester United, things went absolutely mental. As we record a 10-0 win. Mate. We even beat Villa. Twice.
Cut the show.
But then somehow managed to lose to Ipswich. And Man City got their revenge on us as they beat us 3-0 and knock us out of the FA Cup. Right, so that means we've only got 2 competitions left to win, and I think we've got to win them both with this squad. Otherwise, I am an embarrassment to this game. But we are in the final of the Carabao Cup against Bournemouth, and I'm confident we can claw that back against Tottenham, because they're bound to bottle it, right? Question will be is, do we change this? We've beat Manchester United 10-0, we've knocked Arsenal out of the League Cup, but we're still losing stupid matches. And by the way, God bless Nuno Mendes, who has played 22 Premier League games at centre-back now. It's a tricky decision, because if you compare the first half of the season, where we had 3 defeats, with our second half of the season where we've just had 1 in the Premier League, it's probably the right decision to stick with this. The good news was we got our first trophy, the Carabao Cup, with a late winner from Martinelli. The bad news was we somehow lost to Nottingham Forest. So although team chemistry was really good, with only 9 games to go and 8 points adrift, I got pretty desperate. And this is what we're going to end the season with.
Atrocious, awful, disgusting.
Turns out we probably should have used this one earlier, as they smashed it up. And with 1 game to go, we've got a chance of winning the league. And it's Ipswich at home. And unsurprisingly, we beat them with our false 9 Lookman scoring. Like total domination, and Tottenham blew it against Everton. Get in. But City won their match and they won the league. That's a bit embarrassing.